The astronomical box office success of 2017's It Chapter 1 led to a historically high volume of Stephen King adaptations in the years that followed, so there's a sense of homecoming that permeates It Welcome to Derry, the new HBO Max series rooted in the cycle of Pennywise carnage, which precedes the events of Andy Muschietti's two-part movie version. Muschietti returns to help guide this prequel series as director for the first 4 episodes, and though the premiere episode rushes to lay a lot of groundwork, it suggests we're in for a thoughtful and savage exploration of just how deep the rot of It runs through Derry. I'm Tom Jorgensen, and this is my review of the series premiere of It Welcome to Derry. Welcome to Derry has the benefit of starting off on incredibly solid ground. Not only did the creative team have 2 feature films to establish their own version of Derry and its relationship to Pennywise, but this new series has a ton of untapped material from the original King novel to pull from. The interstitial Derry town history chapters, which punctuate the interweaving kid and adult timelines. These passages give the reader a sense of how Pennywise's hunger for fear has flared up in predictable 27-year intervals over time, usually in the form of child disappearances, which crescendo into some sort of mass casualty event. These passages are some of the most disturbing in King's novel. They've never really been adapted for the screen, which is why I'm so excited to see not only what this season of Welcome to Derry does with the Black Spot storyline, as we'll learn a little bit more about as the story goes on, but also the Kitchener Ironworks explosion, the disappearance of the settlers of Derry. These are all things that are really, really disturbing in King's novel that have never really been explored. I'm very excited to see how we drill down into that, not only in this season, but in future seasons. And it is worth continuing to drill down for just a second on the time period of this show and how it adjusts the setting of the book. Muschietti's films moved the events of King's novel up so that Chapter 2 could be set in the modern day. Or maybe it was so Chapter 1 could be set in the 80s and take advantage of that decade's Stranger Things fueled popularity at the time. Casting Finn Wolfhard as Richie Tozier didn't hurt those efforts. That leaves the originally 1930s set and racially charged tragedy Welcome to Derry's first season adapts to land squarely in the middle of the civil rights movement of the 1960s, which feels like a pretty compelling and dramatically fertile shift. And given that the 1990 miniseries set its kids' storyline in the book-accurate 1950s, the 60s time period here gives Welcome to Derry an instant sense of cohesion to what it should feel like on screen. Something helped along with some really fantastic production design and costume work already apparent through this first hour. Welcome to Derry's premiere tracks 2 storylines: the kids on the front lines of Pennywise's latest cycle of torment, and the arrival into Derry of Major Leroy Hanlon. There's a widely held opinion about pretty much every iteration of It that the Losers Club's first encounter with Pennywise as children is more entertaining than their final confrontation with him as adults, and nothing about Welcome to Derry's premiere is going to dispel the notion that the younger character's perspective on Pennywise is the more interesting one. As Hanlon, a B-52 test pilot who'll go on to be the grandfather of Losers Club founding member Mike Hanlon, he appears briefly in It Chapter 1's opening scene, Jovan Adepo brings a steadiness to Leroy that'll be fun to see get challenged by the supernatural horrors ahead. But it's on the airbase that the Welcome to Derry premiere's efforts to lay the groundwork for the season ahead feel the most laborious. Hanlon's icy reception from some of his white colleagues, a special projects building that no one will answer questions about, and the warning glances of another black airman portend more sinister conflicts he'll have to navigate as the season goes. But the intrigue they're setting up here isn't all that intriguing just yet. And with no obvious connection to the more interesting Pennywise stuff going on in town, not even the attack that Hanlon suffers from masked assailants elevates this storyline past feeling like more than setup, even if it's for what will prove to be a critical fork of the plot going forward. No, Welcome to Derry's premiere is at its scariest and most effective while following the kids of Derry as they first begin to encounter Pennywise. Muschietti's movies nailed the creeping weirdness and dread that sets in as kids get closer to It, and Muschietti marshals that surreal sensibility to great effect here in this episode's stellar opening sequence, as loner Maddie Clements hitches a ride home with the wrong family. As Maddie realizes he's in trouble, Muschietti dials up the intensity with increasingly quick edits around to everyone in the car as they act stranger and stranger, Oh, poor little Maddie Clements, you were doomed from the second we met your nearly teenaged ass sucking on a pacifier in a movie theater. That is not something you can do in a horror story and expect to make it to the end credits, kid. By the way, that name should ring a bell. Matthew Clements is one of Pennywise's victims in King's novel. Constant readers, you are going to be hearing a lot of proper nouns that will make your ears perk up. The way Muschietti draws out the demise of the young outsider and how he subjects Maddie to satisfyingly shocking imagery before he goes promises an eye towards plenty more psychologically oppressive windups in future episodes. The payoffs in this first episode, though, do yield mixed results. Scares that lean on quick glimpses of something that shouldn't be there or voices coming from where they shouldn't go a lot farther than ones reliant on letting the monster fully out from under the bed. If you found the scares in the It movies, which leaned more on CG, a letdown, the main form Pennywise takes when it does appear in this first episode will likely be more distraction than nightmare fuel. Still, Pennywise's first attacks definitely communicate one thing about Welcome to Derry: there is likely to be no shortage of blood and gore coming our way, and a few plot-armored characters aside, no adult or kid is safe. What both the adult and kid storylines do highlight effectively and set up as an important dynamic to follow going forward is the parallel between Pennywise's malice and the banal indifference of Derry's citizenry towards the plights of others. How kids recognize and rail against it, how young adults get cynical and start to tend towards it, and how those in middle age and beyond seem absolutely doomed to it. Maddie's disappearance weighs heavily on classmates Lily, Teddy, and Phil, and though none of them were particularly close with the missing boy, all three feel varying degrees of guilt at having missed chances to connect with him before he disappeared. Lily is the most intriguing of the younger characters introduced in this first episode, as the Maddie situation is compounding some pre-existing grief that young actor Clara Stack handles capably. Lily also brings along her no-bullshit best friend Marge, whose big personality and take-no-prisoners attitude already makes her a candidate for best character on the show. Feels like a little bit of retroactive Barb love going on. She's got big Barb energy. And how's Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise in this first episode? Well, if there was something to say, it would have been said by now. He's not around. Nope, Welcome to Derry seems intent to parse out its Pennywise appearances sparingly. And whether that's for purely narrative reasons or because Skarsgård's schedule is a lot more full than it used to be, doesn't really matter when the end result leaves Pennywise feeling as ominous a background presence as he should through the season premiere. Glimpses of Pennywise's cocked eye or his giant buck teeth appearing in the mouths of those antagonizing the kids are as much as we get to see. But for now, that feels like it's in keeping with the limited amount of information the kids have on the monster whose bloodthirst they have only scratched the surface of. It Welcome to Derry's premiere is getting an 8. It makes you feel right at home in America's worst small town. The first episode accomplishes its most important task of reestablishing Derry and Pennywise with style and some expertly drawn out tension, though some of the more CG-heavy scares fall flat. Indirectly honoring a popular critique of the novel, the kids' side of the story is so far way more compelling than the adults, but Pennywise has barely begun to poke his red tufted head out of the sewer, so there's plenty of time for that storyline to start floating. We all float down here, after all. Thank you for watching. For more spookies, check out what we thought of The Black Phone 2 and Frankenstein, and as always, keep it right here on IGN. Happy spooky season!